Welcome to Everyday Lessons in the Bible. Today I was in Isaiah 19 and 20. And chapter 19 is talking about Egypt, but as we're going through the Bible together, you have to look at it not through specific. So like when it says Egypt, you have to kind of read it like what we're trying to do with Everyday Lessons in the Bible. Look at it, how does this apply to me today? And what is it talking about? And a lot of times, especially in some of the prophetic books of the Bible, like Isaiah, it's not necessarily literal as much as it's foretelling or a metaphor or there's hidden meanings behind it. So in the beginning here, it's really referring to Egypt as a symbol of the world and the temptations and the snares of the world. So when you're reading about Egypt, you got to kind of keep that in mind. And then when it talks about the king of Assyria, Assyria today, in our modern day, is considered Iraq, Iran, Turkey. And so you kind of have to keep that in mind as well. And then there's this one part in here where it says the waters of the sea will be dried up. And the waters can mean here not necessarily literal waters. It can mean the life-giving ministry, faith. It could be that it's talking about during this time, there will come a time where the life-giving ministry of Jesus is drying up in the people, which I feel like that's today. There's so much going on in our country and in our world today. People's faith is just disappearing. It's being dried up. It's being tested. And so then it even talks in here about the word. And the word is, it's sown in the seeds of people in their heart. So when the word is it's like a seed that's planted in our heart that grows as the water, the love of Jesus flows all over us. The word just expands. It's sown. It then becomes reaping. But it's talking about even that will be dried up in people. And then when it talks about fishermen, that could be referring to evangelists. But also that gets dried up. And so it's just kind of, it makes you think about the end times. It does for me. I just got through reading a bunch of, reading through Revelations again, because I did a Revelation study and so I just finished going through all of that. And it just makes me reflect back when I'm reading in Isaiah. I start thinking about Revelation and what all that was talking about. And the drying up of the land can be the drying up of our souls, of our faith, that people will, walk away. And it's just really sad. And so then it talks about the pillars of the land, which is like the foundation of the world. And how the worldlessness of people is broken off of their lives, And so it's saying that they will be crushed. And then it talks about Zone. I think that's Zoan or something. But anyway, that's in Egypt. And it's talking about this was a time, this part is not talking about Moses, but it's referring back to when Moses worked miracles to Pharaoh, trying to get Pharaoh to let his people go, trying to let him see that there is only one true God and that God had sent Moses and to release the people. And of course, if you'll remember that whole story, after so many miracles, he finally let them go and then they came after them. So it's talking about that again. It's kind of given a foreshadowing of that time, and how that time will happen again. And so what my brain goes to, okay, how does that apply? How does that apply today or even in the near future with all the end time talks that you hear about and just the devastation and the wars and the rumor of wars going on around our world, and how, we try so hard to let people know of the love of God, and people have just turned their hearts cold. They're not listening to the Lord. But I tell you, what's also fascinating is in other countries, not just to the United States, and I know other people will listen to this that are in other countries, but here in the United States, even though people's hearts are turned cold and away from the Lord, throughout the world, so many people there's just revival breaking out. Millions of people coming to the Lord in other countries, in underground churches. And it's just fascinating and wonderful. And I wish that could happen here in the United States. And it will. It will. So then, like when you read, the head is like a leader and the tail is like lying prophets. And because it says in there, and there will be nothing for Egypt that head or tail, palm branches or reed may do. So nothing that leaders or lying prophets, the strong, the weak, the high or the low. And then it refers to the hand, which could also be referring to, and so you kind of have to have your mind realize that different things mean different things, I guess you would say. So the hand can be the fivefold ministry, which is your apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. And then it goes down to talking about Canaan. Well, Canaan in the Hebrew means to be humbled, to bend the knee, humility. And so it's referring to Canaan here. And it's God is saying here that there will come a time where all of those people in that area will be humbled, and that the language will be the people of God. There will be the language of hope and not despair, love and not hatred, spiritual language of all that is sacred. So all in that area, and it's talking about in Assyria, in Egypt, and the Jewish people, that they will all come together, which isn't that incredible when you think about that? And that the spirit will be of broken promises, which is of Pharaoh. And that's why it's referring back to this time with Pharaoh, is that spirit of broken promises. Because if you'll remember, Pharaoh kept promising he would let them go, and then he didn't. And he did it over and over again. And then when he finally did let them go, then he came after them. So that spirit of broken promises will be broken off of Egypt. So remember, Egypt is the world. So that will be broken off the world. And so I just think it's fascinating, because you have to remember, when you're reading the scriptures, there is more to it than just the words on the page. Just like the Egyptians represent worldly people. And if God responds to them, how much more will he respond to his people? So when you think about this, whenever this time happens, God is reaching out to all people. He wants all people to come to him. And there will come a time where people will turn back to God. They will turn to Jesus. They will surrender their life. And it even says in the last verse of this particular chapter, in that day, Israel will be third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. Wow. I mean, I just think about, this is talking about the world. God's going to come, and there is going to be devastation because the enemy doesn't want anybody to come to know the Lord. But through that, so many people are going to scream out to God, cry out to God, and he is going to save them. And oh, what a blessing that's going to be. And so then you move into chapter 20 and Isaiah. It's kind of there's a 3-year span in here where Isaiah is trying so hard to minister to people and tell them about God. And it's an example of Jesus's 3 years of his ministry of, and when it talks about naked before the people, it could mean a literal naked, or Isaiah could have been just bearing his soul, like humbling himself and telling the people all about God and the love of God, and just trying so hard to bear his life before people. And gosh, how hard that is for us, how hard it is for us to just bear our souls to people, our life, let people see our ministry, our life, our pain, our struggles, our trials, our tribulation. But when you let people in and see the pain in your life, oh my gosh, it's such a blessing to other people. And it brings people closer to the Lord, because when they see the transformation that's happened in your life, it transforms their life. It allows them to open up their heart to God and for him to do a work in them and to just transform their lives. And so when I read this, gosh, it just gives you such hope to know that God wants to see all people in the world delivered and set free, so that he can do the work that he wants to do in their lives to transform them, so that they can then in turn be a blessing to others. Such good word today.